Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll continue reading from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, I believe, text 13. Dhyana Yoga. Or Sankhya Yoga. Okay, text 13 and 14. Samam kaya shiro grivam darayan achalam stira sampreksha nasikagram swam shashchana valokayan Prashantatma vigata bir brahmachari vrate stitaha manasamyamya machchito yukta asita matpadaha. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Text 15. Yunjanivam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana paramam madsamstam adhigacchati. Thus, practicing control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. Text 16. Natyashnatastu yogosti nachaikantam anashnata nachati swapna shilasya jagrato naiva charjuna. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjun, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Text 17. Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapna vapodasya yogo bhavati dukkha. He who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, and recreation can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Text 18. Yadaviniyatam chitam atmanya evavatishtite nispriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityauchyate tada. Yukta ityutate tada. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. Text 19. Yatadipo nivatasto ningate sopamasmrita yogino yatachitasya yunjato yogam atmanaha. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Text 20 to 23. Yatro paramate chittam nirudham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grayam atindriyam viti yatra nachairayam sitas chalati tatvataha yam labla cha param labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito na dukena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samyutam. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Okay, so we can go back to text 13 and we'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Purport. The goal of life is to know Krishna, who is situated within the heart of every living being as Paramatma, the four-handed Vishnu form. Pop quiz, what's the goal of life? To know Krishna. Try. The yoga process is practiced in order to discover and see this localized form of Vishnu, and not for any other purpose. The localized Vishnu Murti is the plenary representation of Krishna dwelling within one's heart. One who has no program to realize this Vishnu Murti is uselessly engaged in mock yoga practice and is certainly wasting his time. Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and the Vishnu Murti situated in one's heart is the object of yoga practice. To realize this Vishnu Murti within the heart, one has to observe complete abstinence from sex life. Therefore, one has to leave home and live alone in a secluded place, remaining seated as mentioned above. One cannot enjoy sex life daily at home or elsewhere and attend a so-called yoga class and thus become a yogi. One has to practice controlling the mind and avoid all kind of sense gratification, of which sex life is the chief. In the rules of celibacy written by the great sage Yagyavalkya, it is said, the vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words, and mind at all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught therefore from childhood when one has no knowledge of sex life. Children at the age of 5 are sent to the Gurukul, or the place of the spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in the strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyana, jnana, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life, having sexual relationship only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is also called brahmachari. Thus, a restrained householder, brahmachari, may be accepted in the bhakti school, but the jnana and dhyana schools do not admit even householder brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence without compromise. In the bhakti school, a householder brahmachari is allowed controlled sex life because the cult of bhakti yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Vishayavani vartante niraharasya dena rasavarjam rasopyasya padam drishrami vartate. Whereas others are forced to restrain themselves from sense gratification, a devotee of the Lord automatically refrains because of superior taste. Other than the devotee, no one has any information of that superior taste. Vigatabi, one cannot be fearless unless one is fully in Krishna consciousness. A conditioned soul is fearful due to his perverted memory, his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. The Bhagavatam says, Bhayam dvitiya baniveshitasya rishad petasya viparya yosmati. Krishna consciousness is the only basis for fearlessness. Therefore, perfect practice is possible for a person who is Krishna conscious. And since the ultimate goal of yoga practice is to see the Lord within, a Krishna conscious person is already the best of all yogis. The principles of the yoga system mentioned herein are different from those of the popular so-called yoga societies. Maharaj, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this shloka.
Bhakti yoga brings them right to the goal, to the final point. Because ultimately, in order to reach the highest stage, one has to meet Krishna and realize that Krishna is the goal. There's no goal before him that's complete, and there's no goal beyond him. He's the destination, the supreme paramgati. So if we want to get on with it, and we should want to get on with it because time is short. We don't know how much time we have left in this lifetime. And if we don't complete our path or our advancement in this lifetime, then we have to take another birth or maybe several births and try to reach the goal that way. But it's so much easier now. Lord Chaitanya's appeared so recently, and Srila Prabhupada, such an empowered, and Bhaktisiddhanta, Thakur, very powerful, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we really have a lot of momentum, a lot of good opportunity to take up Bhakti Yoga and perfect our lives.
Thank you, Maharaj. Does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these shlokas or this purport or Maharaj's comments? So, Krishna is speaking a process of how to control the mind, how to become fixed in consciousness. Prabhupada alluded to in this purport. Where was it? Yeah, he says that, anyways, one has to control the senses. One has to control the mind. Okay, here it is. One who has no program to realize this Vishnumurti is uselessly engaged in mock yoga practice and is certainly wasting his time. So if we're doing any kind of particular yoga or meditation, but it's not, the goal is not actually to bring us to the ultimate goal of life, then we have to question what's the utility of it? What's the point of it? You know, I'm going to meditate so I could be more peaceful, so I can enjoy nature better, so I can enjoy this aspect of life better. Or I can do yoga to make my body strong so I can have more sex, or, you know, sex with more attractive partners, attract a potential mate. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks in chapter 2. He says that Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya parita chetasam vyavisyatmika buddhi samado navitiyate. What he says is that in the minds of the people that are too attached to material opulence, the resolute purpose to taking up spiritual life or Krishna consciousness does not take place. Samadha navidhiyate, like samadhi, this fixed concentration of consciousness does not take place. Why? Because we're always thinking about ways to enjoy. In the previous verse, in that section, Krishna says, Vyavasyatmika budhir ekeha kurunandana bahushakha yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. He says that the transcendentalist who's on this path, he's resolute in determination, and his consciousness is fixed with one pointed attention. So this is why when we come into association with devotees, it can seem pretty heavy that they may be, super gung-ho about Krishna. There's no room for anything else. And you try to bring up other things, or you talk in a certain way, and they're just like, what are you talking about? That's Maya, and then you don't even believe them, and then they reveal before your very eyes how, what you're talking about isn't so productive, and it can be hurting to deal with this. But ultimately, it's for our best good, because Krishna's speaking the Bhagavad Gita not to berate us, but to help us understand that if we're trying to enjoy in the material world, it leads to nothing but suffering. But if we fully take up the process of Krishna consciousness, then what's this shloka? I forget the whole shloka, but the last line is Susukum kartamavyayam. This process is joyfully performed. So as a neophyte, we may wonder, joyfully performed, this isn't joyful. We have to refrain from all the senses. Where's the sex life? Where's the juice of life? Where's the nectar? I miss the pizza. What? It's not the same. Die. Anyways, Prabhupada quoted this shloka in the purport. It says, Vishayavani vartante niraharasitehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So this is Krishna speaking in the second chapter. It's saying people who take up the path of refraining from their senses, it's very difficult because we still have, the taste remains of what it's like. We still have an experience. We can connect with it. I used to have problems, and I used to do certain intoxicants to help me cope with my problems. So then now I'm refraining from my senses, and I'm not even talking about taking up bhakti yoga. Say I'm taking up just meditation. I'm just trying to control my senses, and that's it. I'm done with this aspect. I don't need it. But as soon as difficulties arise, we remember what it's like to get intoxicated, to deal with our problems, or whatever other means we use to cope with the anxieties of life. But Krishna is saying that param drishtva nivarte, one gets the superior taste. So I was thinking about this, about, we may think it's tough here, but the point is that we're not just refraining from our senses. The whole point is to bring Krishna into the center. So what are we doing? We're singing, we're reading, we're hearing about Krishna, talking about Krishna, cooking for Krishna, making garlands for Krishna, vases for Krishna, all these wonderful activities. So we're not trying to just cut out the senses. Prabhupada in his lectures, he often quotes the shloka sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paridvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchite. And he describes that bhakti yoga means engaging our senses in the service of Krishna. Bhakti yoga means engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses. So bhakti yoga is not inactivity. It's full of activity. And the more that we're willing to do service for Krishna, then Krishna becomes pleased. Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijananti yavanyasyasmi tatvataha omam tatvata gyatva shite tadanantram. Says that only by devotional service can I be known. So as we take up devotional service, this pleases Krishna. Whatever we're doing in terms of studying, hearing, chanting, all these things are great. But we have to see that we're always dependent upon something other than ourselves. If I'm chanting, in the beginning, we might have no taste, might be difficult, but there may come a time where I'm chanting and, I'm really absorbed and I think, I'm really strong and, I'm super spiritual. Nobody can take me down. But we have to see that whatever we're getting is given to us. It's given by the guru. It's given by the scripture, which is, ultimately given by Krishna. So as one advances, then naturally they realize more and more their dependence upon Krishna. And as we realize our dependence upon Krishna, we realize that it's not limited to, like we were talking earlier, realizing 1+1=2. It's not that I go in here and I learn the equation and, boom, I got to figure it out. But by our sincere devotional attitude, Krishna will bless us with all the knowledge. And this can come whether we're doing practical service, hearing, sitting in the class. And I could sit in the class and totally space out and think about, what I'm going to do this weekend, the big party or whatever people do. Shri Gauranatai Ki Jai. Or we can be rendering devotional service. In one sense, there's no difference between hearing Krishna Katha and speaking Krishna Katha. It's about that attitude of actually hearing. If we're submissively trying to understand, then it's very, very purifying. But similarly, one could be speaking Krishna Katha and I'm speaking all these nice words, but I'm not actually following, then what potency does it have? So our sincere endeavor. And I mean, one point about this, Krishna's pleased by devotional service. I've been thinking a lot about how much energy we waste because we operate from the conditioned platform on lower states of consciousness, which is either just thinking about our belly and how we could fulfill our base needs, like an animal, or we could come to a higher platform and use our mind and really, think and analyze. I think this will work. I want this. I want that. Or we come up to a higher state of wisdom and realization. But ultimately, we're aspiring for this platform of bliss. But on the point of wasting our energy, we waste our energy because we're living life on the mental platform. So we're always stuck in our head thinking, oh, I don't know if this is good. I maybe if this was like this, I'll do this. And then maybe if this doesn't work out, I'll do it. We're always constantly planning and tweaking and doubting and, having our reservations. Just natural, because to doubt something is a sign of intelligence. Even Krishna consciousness, you shouldn't just jump into it blindly. But although that's good, Krishna says that even those who have the propensity to hear from authorities, they make advancement. He describes later. So just by hearing from the proper source and following, then one can make advancement. But because we're so not so simple, we have all these complexities in our mind of thoughts and desires and, doubts and fears and all these things. It saps our energy. Whereas you can just imagine, say something intense happens, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Say, okay, this tree, there used to be a tree outside, but they cut it down. I was going to say there's a tree outside and it falls down and it falls on like a railway or a car, something like a bad situation. And something needs to be done about it. Say a devotee comes and grabs me and is like, oh, I need your help. We got this thing going on. I could sit there and say, okay, Jai, let's do it. Like for Krishna, let's go. And then I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not worried about it. And then it's like, there's no energy wasted. I'm just going to do the service and be happy because it's like, life is life. Good things comes, bad things come. So, and I like to say, it's like Krishna gives us lemons. We got to cut them up and, make lemonade and offer it to Krishna. So, but we can imagine in the very same situation, I'm just like, Prabhu, it's hot outside. we don't have a chainsaw, we only have a hatchet, we this, that, it's good to utilize intelligence. But the point is that in devotional service, the attitude of service is very important. If we do service in a begrudging attitude, how is this pleasing to Krishna? What does Krishna need from us? We offer him a garland. Krishna, he can manifest 1,000,000 garlands if he wants. I offer him some rice and dal and sabji. What's so special about my rice and dal and sabji I'm cooking when he's getting served rice and dal and sabji by the greatest cook, Srimati Radharani? So realistically speaking, what do we have to offer Krishna? We don't have anything to offer except for ourself, our consciousness, and ultimately our love. So to surrender to Krishna in a loving mood and depending upon him. If one becomes fully dependent upon Krishna, then Krishna feels obliged to help us. Like imagine, you have a baby and a baby is helpless. There's no other shelter in the world and you're the parent. It's natural to give this baby protection because it has no other thing in the world to take care of it. So similarly, if we adopt that same mood with Krishna, then Krishna's there, right there with us always. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for one who sees me and everything, I'm always there. I'm always with him, and he's always with me. So the more and more we put Krishna in that center and depend upon him, we realize, and let me get off of the mental platform of being stuck within my head, of doubting what people think about me, of doubting what service I'm doing, whether it's important or not. And do it for Krishna. Even if we do the most minuscule service and we do it for Krishna, it's immensely beneficial. But if we do the most grandest service in the material world, it's useless. You can imagine the highest post in the material world. Useless. The lowest position for Krishna, just a tiny menial servant. Psh, it's everything. So I don't want to talk all day. We can read some more, but maybe anybody has any questions or anything? Yes, Jagannath. Ooh.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say thank you for saying that one who hears from authority pleases Krishna, because sometimes when I get mental, I think like I made the wrong choice or I'm less intelligent. But this is like really reassuring because Krishna himself says that it pleases him. So it has to be a good thing to hear from authority and then act on it. So thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could find where it's at. I don't know which sloka it is. I think it's chapter 12 or 13. I don't know. I'm going to waste too much time if I look for it. But yeah, it says that one comes to him, makes advancement just by having that tendency to hear from authorities, which is extremely difficult in Kali Yuga because there's so many cheaters. So we have to use our intelligence and discrimination. But upon using your intelligence and discrimination, and as it brings you into contact with proper authorities who are speaking and giving instructions based on the acharyas, based on Krishna, then yeah, these are authorities that we can trust. So by cooperating and hearing from them, it's very nice. This is the nature of spiritual life, that there is a submissive person, a person who's on a lower platform, and a person who's on a higher platform. That's what we could look up and see the parampara. There's guru, disciple. Disciple, guru, disciple, guru. It's not that the disciple becomes a guru and then he forgets his guru. No, the guru is always a disciple of his guru and ultimately, of Krishna. So that's always there, of being submissive. Okay, somebody do you have something? No. I just don't have the ability to see the time here. It's 11. 11. I don't know what this it says 11.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I was hoping you could point me in the right direction. I'm thinking of a specific shloka. It talks about how maybe it's at the end of the 3rd chapter, the end of the 5th chapter. It's about karma yoga and how essentially it's a stepping stone to jnana yoga. But we also hear that Krishna, in the 3rd chapter, he says, like, what would happen if he stopped? Krishna works, because he sets an example. And if he stopped working, then the rest of men would follow him. And it'd be the cause of so much. So my question is surrounding the idea that we need to set an example, even if we're at an elevated stage. One still needs to it's being suggested here in the Gita that they still need to carry on with their prescribed duties. But then here in chapter 6, we also see that, Krishna is telling us to go isolate ourselves and do this and do that. So I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah, which text is this where he says this?
Which part? To isolate ourselves?
Yes.
I think we read it tonight.
We did. It's probably the long one.
Yeah, I think so. Is it? No, we're looking for something in chapter 6, but yes, that is what I was, that is the right verse that I was talking about.
Well, first of all, I wish I could find this, but Prabhupada, he describes, it might be in another portion where Krishna says something very similar. But Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna describing living in isolation. For the devotee, that means, giving up the association of non-devotees. For Prabhupada, he also describes, like Krishna speaks about silence. Prabhupada describes this as, giving up speaking nonsense. Because speaking in things that aren't in relation to Krishna ultimately doesn't have value. So therefore, it's not worth speaking. But things that are connected, then it has value. So it is worth speaking. So in one sense, that's silence. So similarly, about isolating oneself, Krishna speaking for the yogi to control his mind and, do this strict process, which is very difficult. You have to be in a sattvic environment. That's why most yogis in India, they go to the Himalayas. It's peaceful, quiet. There's so much prana, just like living force, we want to do pranayam, but you're not having a high prana diet and an environment with prana, it's very difficult to make advancement in that regard. So Prabhupada describes that isolation as giving up the association of non-devotees and living within the association of devotees, because then we're isolating ourselves from the nonsense, the distractions, and we're gathered with others who are helping us advance on the spiritual path. So that's the whole point. Why would one want to be isolated, is to cultivate that. But very easily we can do that whether we're in the city or the farm or the mountains, wherever. So just being in the association of devotees. As far as karma yoga to lead to jnana, Krishna speaks a lot in the first few chapters about karma and jnana, where he speaks about working and being unattached to the results. He describes it as nishkama karma yoga. Nishkama means no kama, no lust. So you're working and performing your duties, but being unattached to the results. And then at the same time, he describes jnana, which is like the path of renunciation. Because through jnana, you're using wisdom and knowledge to break down life, and realizing that ultimately I'm spirit soul. So that's like the path of renunciation, detachment. And so Arjuna asked Krishna about this because he says, I'm bewildered by your instructions. It's the beginning of chapter 3. And then that starts the whole basis of, that chapter, which Prabhupada titled Karma Yoga. So let's see. It says, why do you urge me to why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. So then, we heard in chapter 5 the other day, the beginning of chapter 5, Arjuna asked, more elaborately on this question. He says, Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work and devotional service is better than renunciation of works. So then, we can look at it where, what did we read? There was something. Okay, text 18. We read something. There's a connection that I'll make. It says, when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. So Krishna says, when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities, we control our mind, and we become situated in transcendence. And then there's this dash, and it says, devoid of all material desires, meaning transcendence is being above the material energy. So one can act in Krishna consciousness and be free from material desires because you're doing the activities for Krishna. So then there's no action reaction in the material world. So one path is that of essentially neti neti. Neti neti means no, not this, not that. Where you can take out the path of introspection, jnana, essentially, in other words, where jnana can be much more, but I'm trying to simplify it for the context of the way we're talking about it. Neti neti means not this, not that. Like I'm not this, I'm not that. This isn't the absolute truth. That's not the absolute truth. And trying to, by negation, get to the root of all existence. So one can go on for millions and millions and millions of lifetimes and still never understand. But simply by working in devotion for Krishna, then, like I mentioned, Krishna describes how that process is actually joyfully performed, as opposed to I have to sit there and I have to drill in my mind that I have to focus on this, I have to eliminate this desire, I have to eliminate that. That's not me. That's not, So you're always trying to break things down, rather than our process is that of just focusing on Krishna and doing activity for Krishna and depending upon Krishna to bestow all the realizations and blessings which he does upon the sincere devotee. He says in the 10th chapter, we could go there real quick. It's text 9 and 10. This is the Chatur Shloki of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The 4 essential verses that summarize the Bhagavad Gita is text 8 through 10. 8 through 11. So text 10 and 11 is, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And text 11, out of compassion for them, I dwelling in their hearts destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So if we truly, sincerely are devoted and worship Krishna with love as a friend and give the understanding, or he gives the understanding which we can come to him, he reveals that knowledge. And Prabhupada, in that purport, he even describes that Okay, it's the third paragraph of the purport of text 10. It says, a person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached. Hare Krishna. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization. But still, if he is not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. Qualification is that a person always engage himself in Krishna consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be done with love. If a devotee is intelligent enough, he will make progress on the path of self-realization. If one is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. So the point is, connecting all these points that I was speaking on and then you brought up and what we read is, Hare Krishna, is that taking up the path of trying to control our mind and senses just by negating them from the objects of their senses, from the things that we, use to excite us and find enjoyment, to cut that off after we've been doing it for so long. We have a taste for that. It's very, very difficult. And then if we even are able to do that and go further and inquire into, what's the absolute truth? What's this? What's that? It's an endless search, rather than if we actually have this love and devotion in working for Krishna, then Krishna gives that understanding by which they can come to him. And Prabhupada made that point, like, even if that person has all these tools, but they're not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna gives instructions so that he can come to him. Krishna's without as the guru, he's within as Chaitya guru. Chaitya means like life force, it's the guru within. So we're always guided by Krishna, but we have to purify our consciousness so we can be able to understand Krishna's presence and direction in our life. And because we may not be so pure and we're contaminated with a false ego, then we always have to take shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to confirm what's actually being transmitted by Krishna. But ultimately, somebody who's sincere in coming to Krishna, he'll give the knowledge. So I'm kind of rambling on this point. I hope that's relevant at all to your question. Is there more? Is it quick? I mean, let's do it real quick. We're already on this point.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so that makes sense. About Vanaprast, I've only been exposed to a couple of the senior devotees that we have here.
It's a question for them.
Yeah. So it seems like Vanaprast is pretty renounced, pretty isolated. They don't really do so much in terms of like active, work. This is more of like a well, I can't really speak about it because I don't really know, but I'm just trying to make a connection.
Vanaprast, Vana means forest.
Right.
So, in the literal sense, Vanaprast means you retire from household life and you go to the forest.
Yeah, I know things are a little bit different today. So how does this fit into the current Krishna conscious movement?
So ideally, say I choose to get married. I have kids if I so desire, or by fate. Then the kids grow up. I maintain my family, kids, they grow up and then they're able to take care of themselves. Naturally, you're older. At that time, your body is not in that youthful state where it's, let's enjoy like anything, and you've been practicing Krishna consciousness within, your life as you're working and maintaining your family and kids, and you realize life isn't just about enjoyment. It's serious responsibilities. So then as you get older, okay, I could die at any moment. Now is the time to engage more and more in service. So instead of having a wife and just, enjoying, a light relation, the relationship becomes centered on devotional service and helping each other in that role. And say, if I have a wife who's very favorable and helps me in devotional service, then there's no really reason to rush and run away from that. But if you're in a situation that's unfavorable, then yeah, you should take sannyas. But the point is to put Krishna more and more in the center. But honestly speaking, Vanaprastha within our current world situation, there's not always the greatest examples as the other ashrams, because the other ashrams are clear. This is a brahmachari. He lives at the temple, doesn't have so many belongings. And there's a grihastha, they're married, they have family, and then sannyas. But Vanaprastha is kind of a gray area, it's not clearly defined. But there are some very good examples within our ISKCON society of devotees who are together, man and woman, married, and they either have kids or don't have kids, but are retired and fully dedicated to serving Krishna and preaching and traveling around the world preaching. I could think of a few. Sankarshan Prabhu, his wife, Vaisheshika Prabhu, his wife. They're just guru, and they have many childs in the form of disciples. So there's others. I just mentioned a couple of prominent ones, but yeah, that's kind of the gist. Okay, anything else before we end? Yes, Mataji. Can you get the microphone?
Hare Krishna. I was just wondering, I think you were reading a purport when answering Prabhu's question. I'm just wondering which verse that was, purport that was.
I was reading from text 10, chapter 10, third paragraph. Prabhupada's describing how that, if one's sincere, then Krishna provides the intelligence from within for us to come to him. So I think that's it. Okay. Thank you everybody for tolerating me and patiently hearing. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.